Today on With the First Pick, we're talking the best games, standout performances, and biggest storylines for Week 4 of the NFL season. Jonathan Jones, tell them what time it is.
Oh, let's use the right participle and verb tense. It's ran it back Mondays.
Let's go! Ran it back Mondays because when we're branding things, Rand Carthon has to be first. And there you are, buddy. Good to see you guys. Ran it back Mondays with my guys, JJ, Jonathan Jones, CBS NFL Insider, and our former Titans GM there, Rand Carthon. I'm Ryan Wilson. And today, guys, let's start in New York, where we saw Jaxson Dart lead the Giants to their first win of the season in his very first NFL start. Hooray for that. The story, unfortunately, is that Malik Nabers is out for the year after tearing his ACL on the MetLife Stadium artificial turf that has claimed yet another victim. I know you guys didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you. Here's where I'm at on it. And this is the injury right here. Essentially non-contact. He's going up for the ball. The turf does most of the damage, not the defensive back there. But look, I know it's a huge expense to have natural grass at every stadium because we hear the NFL owners belly aching about it, even though the NFLPA has been asking for it for years along with the players. But when you throw down artificial turf, it feels like to me that you're essentially saying, look, man, I bought this Ferrari. Can't wait to see what it does when I open it up on this dirt road full of potholes because I'm going to save a few bucks by not paving the road and maximizing performance and safety. So, JJ, as our NFL insider, can you please make sense of this? And then, Rand, I'll ask you as a former player and NFL executive, anyone on planet Earth want to play on artificial turf over grass? JJ, go ahead.
All right. I'm going to abridge and truncate this a little bit because I want to be fair to those in charge of MetLife Stadium and those who talk about synthetic turf, but also everyone who wants natural grass. The argument against natural grass at MetLife Stadium and anywhere in the Northeast is that it is hard to keep up grass at the sort of level that you would want guys to safely play on it as the months turn, right? As it gets colder, as weather turns, then you consider that you're in a stadium where two teams are playing, right? And if you have a Sunday game and then a Monday game and there was weather, that's going to be a terrible playing surface if it's natural grass in December. One could very strongly argue that the best synthetic turf would be better at that point, right? So you have to decide which way you're going to go. And obviously, the stadium that is New York City Stadium, for all intents and purposes, is probably going to have synthetic turf so that all of the biggest shows can play there because we know it is much easier, much cheaper, and frankly, much easier to have Beyonce and Taylor Swift and Billy Joel all come through on turf rather than on natural grass where the Giants and Jets are going to play. So that's the long part of it. I will also say this because I think I misspoke slightly yesterday about the MetLife turf and how bad it has been, how bad it used to be. They did change it out 2 years ago. They tacitly admitted it was awful before 2023. And so all of those like San Francisco 49ers injuries from Rand, of course, you remember the 2020 or 2021 season, that was a different turf than what is there today. Now, Aaron Rodgers still tore his Achilles on that, and you could argue a 40-year-old could tear his Achilles on a number of different surfaces. But the Malik Nabers play in particular, you should not, when you jump up to catch a ball, just lose your ACL. It's hard. I'm not a biometrics expert, but it's hard to say that that wasn't the turf's fault just based off of what we see with our own eyes.
So first of all, producer Sharon, can we get like a little counter for all these high-powered words JJ's using today? He is using that good North Carolina education system. Man, I'm keeping up. I'm actually trying to type these words down so I can do the lookup part so I can figure out what they mean.
Hey, Rand, let me interrupt you quickly and then you can go ahead. It says something, JJ. You and I are both from North Carolina. When Rand from Florida thinks the North Carolina education system is crushing it. Go ahead, Rand.
Well, look, he learned those words from somewhere. And I tell you what, maybe it was Taylor getting his vocab game up.
That could be it. That's right.
Maybe that's what it was. But I think JJ hit on a really good point that I want to kind of go into a little bit more just in terms of what it means to have grass versus turf in a situation where there's a game being played on it every week. And the way I'll sum it up, and I'll call it the consistency of surface, right? Because you get to a certain level, like JJ said, in November, December, grass isn't going to grow in New York. And so now you get to a point, there's a game on it every week, and then you end up in a situation where you're going to be playing on painted dirt, which is going to lead to even more injuries, and that's going to be a problem. So unfortunately, not every stadium situation is Miami, where you get to play on the Bermuda grass and you get to treat it, or in Arizona, where you get to roll the surface out, treat it all week, away from the building, and then roll it back in, get everything going. So that's going to always be an issue. Personally, I'll say this, and this is coming from the player side, former player side, and former front office side. I don't know that the data swings grass that significantly over turf to make that much of a difference. It's just become a talking point, a buzzword point for players to kind of hang their hat on. But I don't know that the data, which is what the league is going to lean heavily on, is going to take you one way or the other. I know, speaking from a 40-year-old's body standpoint, you do feel considerably worse having stood on turf for 4 straight hours. Your knee joints, your ankle joints, your hips, your lower back, all those things. And I do know from a medical standpoint, players who have ligament joint damage in their knees, ankles, after playing on these type surfaces, it takes them a little bit longer to recover just based on swelling and all of those things. But again, I'll go back and say, I don't think the data swings playing on grass. I don't think there's that much of a difference in playing on turf, which is what I think the league will ultimately come down to.
And
so, Rand, I'll just say, go ahead, JJ. Go ahead real quick.
Just one small thing here, because people who are listening are going to say, okay, well, it's hard to grow grass in the Northeast or New York in November and December. Well, the Green Bay Packers play on grass on this hybrid surface, and Lambeau Field. So let me just answer that really quickly. First of all, Green Bay has invested an enormous amount of money in the infrastructure to be able to have the sort of grass and surface that they have. Now, everybody's making money hand over fist in the NFL. So why can't New York or New England or whomever use that same? The thing about Lambeau is that there is one game played there basically every other week, right? And that is all that they do at Lambeau Field is play football. And so that is clearly not going to be the case in New York City's stadium, right? But also, what is really important to note is when the FIFA World Cup, the Men's World Cup, is played there, and they're going to put grass down. Well, they're putting grass down for a number of reasons, but also nothing is happening for the weeks leading up to that. So they're going to put it down, and then you can't do anything on that surface for weeks. That is not the case in week 4 in New York or in LA, because in week 5, you're playing there, and in week 6, you're playing there. So again, I'm not saying that grass shouldn't be in a New York or in LA, but those are the legitimate challenges, whether or not you want to believe them or not. Those are the challenges involved.
A couple things, and Chicago, Soldier Field as well has grass, and I would imagine they probably get a little bit more traffic there than maybe they do at Lambeau, but that's just me anecdotally speculating. Here's the thing. If the owners wanted to do it, they could do it. It would cost them. And then you're just doing the cost-benefit analysis. Is it worth losing a superstar like an Aaron Rodgers 2 years ago or Malik Nabers on Sunday versus what it costs us to do that? The other thing, just to make sure the cards are on the table, and JJ, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, the NFLPA has done studies that have shown unequivocally that grass is better for you injury-wise, lower body injury-wise, than turf. Now, the NFL will point to studies that say, well, it's uncertain, and that's the beauty of hiring your own statisticians to use the data that you want to use to make the point you want to make. But I think there's data out there that makes it clear. And anecdotally, as Rand notes, players will tell you, I hate playing on turf. I get hurt on turf. You can certainly get hurt. You can break your leg. You can tear your ACL on grass. But I think if we're being honest with ourselves, common sense and most of the research, not all of the research, most of the research would suggest that grass is probably better for players. Rand or JJ, anything you want to add before we
I would just say the NFLPA did a player survey, and ultimately 9 out of 10 said that they preferred grass to synthetic turf. And I would argue that the 1 out of 10 was probably those speedsters, right? I'm
or the kickers or somebody.
Right, like that is the thing. Like Xavier Worthy, and I'm speaking for him, but like Xavier Worthy is probably faster on turf than he is on grass. And if these guys don't necessarily care about lower extremity injuries, and they just care about running past the guy in front of them, then turf actually helps you more.
And
Rand,
I'll just add this in real quick in terms of the World Cup. That is considerable money, right? And having been in a situation where I worked for the organization, the Rams, who are also under the same ownership group that owns Arsenal. And so we practice in London and we practice on their pitch And those people they were livid that we were coming to practice on their field because their surface isn't meant for the physics of our game. And I think if you remember those earlier London games, players complained about those surfaces being too slick and your feet giving out because those are two different surfaces, and the physics of the athlete are just so different.
And that's a good point because professional soccer players probably on average weigh 150 pounds. So I'm not even exaggerating. The only people that weigh 150 pounds are your kids when you bring them to the game and the kickers. That's it. And sometimes the kickers weigh more than that. So you're asking for people that weigh two and a half times more than the average soccer player to not mess up the field. And so there's a lot to work through. I understand fans' frustration and to some extent players' frustration. We saw Odell Beckham send out a tweet calling it Death Life Stadium, which I think he's torn his ACL several times, and he's concerned about that. We'll see if he ends up being a player they bring in to replace Malik. And you can see the tweet here. If you're listening, dear NFL, according to Odell's tweet, I mean this with the utmost love and respect. We take all the precautions in the world with everything else when it comes to players' health, quotation marks, and safety quotation. Please, 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 please get rid of the turf. Thank you in advance. Nothing but love from Odell Beckham. All right, producer Sharon, let's take a quick break. Went a little long talking about the surface and Malik Nabers' immediate future on the sidelines. When we come back, let's talk about his teammate Jaxson Dart, his first NFL start, Brian Daboll's first win this season. We'll do that right after this break. All right, let's talk about some good news out of New York. The Jaxson Dart-led New York Giants won their first game of the season, Jackson's first start, over the Chargers. And Rain, I'll come to you first. We talked about this last week on the podcast. This schedule is absolutely and utterly brutal, no matter how you look at it. But, hey, man, they beat the Chargers. Came into town, beat them 21-18. Jaxson Dart did what was asked of him. They were able to run the ball with him. Didn't ask him to push the ball down the field too much. What were your initial takeaways from how Jackson played? A little frenetic at times in the pocket, but that's okay. And do you feel any better about the Giants team 24 hours after they got the first win?
I don't necessarily feel any better about the team because, I mean you lost Malik Nabers, and they were already having a problem being able to throw the ball downfield anyway with Malik Nabers. And so it only got worse from that standpoint. I know that this was an exciting win for the Giants fan base, and I think they just wanted to win. I don't think they cared who gave it to them. It's just a matter that it came from Jaxson Dart because I know what we do, right? And I know it's Jaxson Dart time, and he lit the world up. I mean, he really did it. But, I mean, you had the Chargers that didn't play Chargers brand of football, right? The Chargers, they turned the ball over twice. I think they had 14 penalties. Like, that is not Charger football. But the Giants was able to take advantage of that. But I want to get, two co-hosts, preferably, not Ryan Wilson and Jonathan Jones, to look at me the way Brian Daboll looked at Jaxson Dart after the game, after they got a win. And, I saw them, they went forehead to forehead. I've never had that moment with a coach before. So I got to find, if Sharon could clip that for me, I got to find that and send it to my wife and say, hey, this is the type of love I'm looking for. When I come home, the forehead to forehead love, like this is what I've been waiting on. But nah, man, I just think I think we need to. I think we're going to see another solid performance this week with this Saints game coming, and then we'll get to see where we really are with this young man. A lot of things that are exciting. He got his little dance on, hit his little jig, like that was cool for social media. Yeah, there you go, JJ. Yeah, see, we knew you had it in you, JJ. You just refused to show it. Come on, man.
Just a little bit, on Ran It Back Mondays, I bring it out. For Jaxson Dart, look, you get the win, right? And he also was able to maintain the victory without Malik Nabers. It's really hard because you're looking forward, and this is going to be an offense that will not be able to stretch the ball down the field, right? You just lost your best pass catcher, and Jaxson Dart is that's probably going to put more on Jaxson Dart's shoulders. And right now, you don't want more on his shoulders. And here's the other thing, Ryan, you used the word frenetic, that frenzy, if you will, led to him getting popped a couple times. It is not a sustainable way to play, right? It's not sustainable for someone who has 25 more pounds on him than Jaxson Dart, right? It'll add up over time. So this is not. They have the Saints coming up. Brandon Saleh will probably try to scheme something up. They played a decent game against a much better opponent, the Buffalo Bills, and then you have a short week facing the Philadelphia Eagles. That's going to be a hard turnaround. If he plays like he did this past week, he's going to get hit. He's not going to feel good Thursday night going up against the defending world champions, and they're going to have a couple of shots at him as well.
Yeah, I think it's all positives. And to your point, Rand, Brian Daboll looked incredibly excited for what was essentially his adopted son going out there and on at least his first day of school showing out. So we'll see what it looks like. And history is full of rookie quarterbacks struggling. So I suspect he will. But if they win the Saints game, we're going to have some conversations because that's just what we do here. The rest of the schedule is going to be tough. All right, let's go to another game in that division, at least with one of the teams. Cowboys host the Packers on Sunday night in the second largest scoring tie in NFL history. And all right, Rand, I'm just going to put it out there. I'm not going to say, did the Cowboys win the Micah Parsons trade because we're only a month into this thing. But let's start here because George Pickens played like a number one, which he has been known to do about once every 3 or 4 games. Dak Prescott looked like a franchise quarterback. The defense was good enough. They only gave up 40. But I want to ask you this. Grade the Micah Parsons trade for both teams a month into the season.
What grade can I give it to make it a tie? Is that a C? Can I give it a C?
Get that? You can give whatever you want. You're going to get both F minuses, both F pluses if you're not going to play the game properly.
Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say about the trade. I think the end result we don't know yet. Right. And I'll say, but I'll partake, and through the first quarter of the season, I'll give the trade a B. I'll give it a B, B for the Packers. From the Packers standpoint, I'll give it a C from the Dallas standpoint, because again, and JJ and I, we talked about this this morning on the Morning Buzz. Like, somebody tell me why everybody hates Dak. I don't know. I don't know, because when he's healthy, he's going to win you 10 games. You're going to be in the playoffs. To me, listen, again, shoot me. I don't care. If the only way to be 0 and whatever or 2 and whatever in the playoffs is to actually make it to the playoffs, right? And that gives you at least an opportunity to make it in the tournament to give you a chance to play February football, right? And I think the Dallas Cowboys don't have an offensive problem, even without CeeDee Lamb. They don't have an offensive problem. The problem is the defense and the amount of points that they've given up. And a lot of the reason for that is their inability to affect the quarterback, right? Not necessarily get the quarterback on the ground, but affect throwing lanes and be able to get these interceptions that they've lived off of on this defense, with all throughout the years of Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland and some of the safeties that they've had come through. Even when they had, they were getting decent linebacker play out of the Leighton Vander Esch's and those type guys being able to get their hands, on tip balls and overthrows. And so that's the problem for this Dallas team right now is the defense, which without Micah, they're searching. They're searching for that edge rush presence because right now teams, who's the threat up front? Love Kenny Clark and think he is a really good football player and would love to have him on my team. But Kenny Clark isn't going to affect the quarterback from a pass rush standpoint from the interior. And then now, are you sliding your protection to Jadeveon Clowney or to Dante Fowler? I don't think you are.
Yep, they have Marshawn Nealon, who they drafted last year. They have Donovan Ezraku, who's flashed. We've talked about him a lot on the Wednesday show. Just he's more pass rusher than setting the edge run defender, and that's all well and good. JJ, do you want to partake in my game, or do you want to go off in another direction? Maybe talk about why the Packers aren't exactly who we thought the Packers were going to be.
Yeah, as a proper journalist, I try to stay away from grading folks 1/4 of the way through a season.
That's on me.
I will take a look at the Packers. This is a team that there should be some level of concern, right? Because 2 weeks ago, we were on this show talking about how they may be the best team in the NFL 2 weeks in, right? And then they lose to Joe Flacco's Cleveland Browns. And I don't want to say they should have lost because both of these teams, like, should have or could have lost at several points in the fourth quarter and overtime, right? But that end of game scenario and situation where not only did Jordan Love not appreciate and understand the time, they got lucky. We got to be honest, right? They got lucky that there was 1 second left on the clock. That was not planned. If that ball gets tipped up in the air, right? If it hits off his back and then hits off his heel and gets tipped up in the air, game's over. You lose the game. So that was really bad. But also, there was time on the play clock. So whoever is in Jordan Love's headset, if he doesn't know, the coach knows. Get out of shotgun, get up underneath the center, spike the ball. We're kicking the field goal. That's it. And so they are very, very close to being 2-2 right now with the 2 losses being against inferior opponents. So there is a level of concern for me with the Green Bay Packers today that did not exist 14 days ago.
And the funny thing about that is, to your point, 2 weeks ago, they're the best team on planet Earth. 2 weeks later, we don't know who they are. And that's sort of the machinations of the NFL season, and why, as a capital J journalist, you refuse to comment on things that I ask about a month into the season. Hey, Rand, before we go to break, I want to ask you, as a front office guy, George Pickens has shown the ability to be wide receiver 1. He's in the final year of his rookie deal. CeeDee Lamb is out. Are you paying, as Jerry Jones, George Pickens?
Not yet. Not yet.
You lose that game Sunday night if George Pickens isn't there.
Cool. You lose the game if Dak isn't there. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it's one game, and that's where George Pickens' job should have been made easier having CeeDee Lamb on the other side of him, right? That's what we all thought that this was going to be, and we got a breakout performance in Week 4. Great. Now we got to build upon that. And even if he goes on and has 1,400 yards receiving this year, I still don't think you pay George Pickens a long-term extension. You franchise him and let's see it again, and then from there you can open up for conversation. But I'm not paying him right now.
Okay. I appreciate the one-word cool response. And on that note, Sharon, let's take a break. I got to regroup. We're going to come back and talk about the other rookie quarterback who has yet to win his first game and had some terse words for everybody involved. Cam Ward, we'll talk about his comments after their latest loss right after this break. All right.
I mean, if we keeping a buck right now, we ass. So we 0-4. We have this point. We got nothing to lose. We dropped a quarter of our games, and we've yet to do anything. So we have to lock in, especially myself on the offensive line, from the defensive line, from the special teams to all 3 faces. We have to play together. We have not played together this year yet, and that's just something that we want to preach about it every day. Every day we got to do better, and we're doing that, but it has to show up on Sundays. It hasn't showed up yet, but it got to show up next week.
All right, Rand and JJ, that's Cam Ward after their latest defeat. They're now 0-4. They had beaten the Titans, I think, 5 straight games. Excuse me, the Texans 5 straight games. They got shut out 26-0. Rand, you know Cam incredibly well. A couple thoughts. I'm sure you're not surprised by Cam's words, and I thought everything he said was fair, and he wasn't pointing fingers in a specific sense. In general, we have to get better. I want to ask you about that, but also, how would this be received in the locker room by a group of veterans when a 21, 22-year-old takes it upon himself to say, hey, this is not acceptable?
Yeah, and so that's where I wanted to go with it. I'm glad you asked the second part of that question. And this isn't, I'm not even addressing what Cam said. I'm not even addressing this whole thing with the Titans or whatever the case may be. I'm just talking about from a pure leadership standpoint, right? Regardless of whatever. The thing you have to be careful from a leadership position, especially when you're the new guy into the place, is you have to make sure you're doing your part, right? Before you go out and you question it. And I liked how he cupped everything and said we and added the we. But sometimes the best part of we is making sure that you are doing your part, you're holding up your end of the bargain, and then you can go out and say, this is what the expectation is. And so from a locker room standpoint, again, for me, I've never been in a situation where I was expected to be a young leader on a veteran team or on a team with veterans. But you typically, those type of conversations are had in the locker room. Right. And so it wouldn't surprise me if there's a player only meeting coming up here, sometime soon, just for those guys to kind of air it out. Because what you don't want to have is a finger pointing situation where, like, hey, I'm balling, I'm doing my part. It's you're not doing your part. And then once that starts and it has a space to live in the locker room, it starts to fester, and then it'll tear your team apart.
You got any thoughts, JJ, just in general about what this means, how it might be received? And I don't know if you've talked in the past with agents who have clients who are not happy with their situation, whether it's from ownership, GM, head coach, or other players, playing time, whatever, because it is a unique position for Cam as the first overall pick. And Ray and I talk about it every week. He's playing relatively well, but there's some trying circumstances for everyone, it feels like, in Tennessee.
Yeah, Ryan, every time I talk with an agent, their clients are disgruntled about something. So that's I can say that's pretty common around the league. Also, I wanted for you, Ryan, because when Cam said, like, I'm going to keep it a buck, he was saying that a buck is 100%. So I just wanted to explain that for you. I would say,
what are you laughing at, Rand? Shut up.
In his keeping it a buck, while what he is saying is true, right? He said this back in training camp where he was like, we're mid, which Ryan mid. Okay, all right. Well, what he is doing, while true, he is not helping his head coach. His head coach is on a very warm seat right now. This is me talking and just me talking as a journalist, as a reporter. And so when you say that, he kind of has, there's two roads, right? This is the new Robert Frost poem where he could stand up there and just give the coach speak, right? Hey, we all know that we got to play better. It starts with me. I have to play better. This is not acceptable. And that could be that. But instead, he is offering us, and I, as a journalist who would be sitting in that crowd, love a great quote. So I don't want Cam to stop out of my own self-interests. But when he says these things, it can lead a segment on Ran It Back Mondays and on CBS Sports Network. And so that's not helping Brian Callahan. That's not helping the group that's there right now. And so, Ran, I think, illuminated how there could be a players-only meeting, how this could fester. I really liked how you said there could be space for this to really metastasize, right? I think there's no doubt at all about that. But as much as I love what he's saying, I may, if I am with the Tennessee Titans, I may want to just be like, hey, Cam, just give us some coach speak next week.
Yeah, no, I get that. And by the way, Rand, you could giggle a little less when JJ's pointing out to me how pop culture works in this day and age. I thought you fell out of the chair for a second there. So shame on both of y'all. I'm going to keep it buck and ask you, Rand, who was keeping it more buck, Liam Coen or Robert Saleh?
See, first of all, this is why we laughed, because you just completely butchered that, right?
Look at JJ.
Just keep it a buck.
I keep it buck. You can keep it a buck.
Well, I mean, you can nuck if you buck.
That's right.
If that's what you.
Boy.
But
so let me set it up though. So prior to the game, Robert Saleh, it felt like he was saying it in a positive sense that the Jaguars legally are good at figuring out signs and what that means for the subsequent play call. Liam Coen took issue with that, didn't say a whole bunch before the game. After the game, when they were, you can see it here, Liam Coen said essentially, keep my name out of your mouth. And Robert Saleh's response was, I don't think you want any of this. And Rand, you know Robert Saleh quite well from your time together in San Francisco. I get the sense that no one wants to mess with Robert Saleh, even someone wearing a jersey and shoulder pads. But you can tell me, what is your takeaway from how this unfolded? And if you're a betting man, where would you put your money?
All right, so a couple of things. I'm gonna unpack it, and this is just being completely objective. And I hope my man Bob Saleh sees this. First of all, Bob was snitching, okay? Let's just call a spade a spade. And he threw everybody else under the bus because he was like, yeah, from the people in Minnesota, and Sean does this, and yeah, he was on the stand just dropping dime. He went full Nino Brown. If I'm going down, I'm taking everybody with me.
Why would he want you to hear? Why would you want him to hear this?
Because I want him to know that I think he's snitching, is what I want him to know. So that's first and foremost. Now I want to analyze the video, okay? You got the coaches are having their little spat. You know, you can't see Liam because he's off camera. But Saleh's holding on to the Jaguars player that's in front of him, right, to me signifies like you're not trying to get over there to him. And then Liam is conveniently allowing somebody else to hold him back. It goes back, and I said this earlier, JJ, something that my grandfather would say. One of them was scared and the other one was glad of it. Right? So, and the other saying, you wouldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight. So it's not, like JJ talked about it, and I'm gonna toss it over to JJ, let him finish it. But nothing was going to go down. But if I had to pick, if I was going to take the two, I'm riding with Saleh because Liam has a family, but Saleh has 8 kids, so he's got a different grown man daddy strength that I think than Liam. But man, this was a YouTube exhibition, pre-fight kind of meetup, if you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, you saw Saleh at the start of that video. He goes up to try to dap up Liam Coen. Right, Liam Coen ain't want to dap you up. Like you snitched on him earlier in the week, so he doesn't, and you know that he doesn't want dap, right? And so that was a ridiculous thing to do anyway. And then when they're bickering and yelling back and forth, nobody's going to do anything. This is like when you watch the NBA and everybody's shouting at each other. Nobody's throwing a punch. No, you aren't. You're not getting suspended 5 games and losing that game check. These coaches, these grown men are not going to fight. So we don't need to act like they are. What I would say about the snitching that Robert Saleh did, legal sign stealing is a complete oxymoron, because to steal legally is you don't do that. Second of all, everyone does exactly what the Jacksonville Jaguars do. Watch tape, match the signals with what they see on tape, try to get an advantage. And to say that they have an advanced system, I don't know what they could possibly be doing outside that is legal that you can't do. Why are they so advanced, but you are stuck in the Stone Age? So it was a ridiculous thing to even bring up, because this happens literally every week at literally every game in professional American gridiron football. But Robert Saleh is the first coach to ever bring this up. And then he thinks that it's just going to slide with everybody. And then you lose. Bro, if you snitch like that, you better not lose. He lost.
Hey, real quick, Ryan, because here's the other part to to him dropping all these names that he dropped in the federal indictment. Was like, these people are now going to call Kyle and call him because they all have a relationship. And it was one of those situations to me where it's like all 3 of us do a crime together, right? We'll say a crime together. I get caught, and I know where you 2 are hiding, and I'm walking by in the bushes. Hey, Ryan, they caught us. I'm like, you didn't have any, I got caught. And so what Saleh did, and JJ said this earlier, he broke the code. He broke the code. And it's one thing to mention Liam Coen, which you can do what you want to do, but it's when you started bringing the coaches from Minnesota into the picture. You start bringing Sean McVay and his staff into the picture. Like, that was completely out of the realm, and that broke the code. So, Bobby, you my guy, and if the fact that you are my guy, I have to hold you accountable, you were dead wrong for that.
Yeah, that's what happens when you don't keep it a buck. How's that? Is that better, guys?
No.
You like that?
No. It has.
You know what I'm going to do for the next show?
Nothing.
Next show, I'm going to learn the Carlton dance and just do the Carlton dance for 44 minutes.
No,
because y'all essentially
show,
treat me like Carlton right now.
The next show, don't say a buck again, because
you're real mid right
now. You've taken it from 100 to 1. When you say a buck, it's like
right,
Adele versus Adele.
It is a sad day.
I hope your son doesn't see this, man.
Oh, he knows. Look, man, if anybody knows, it's him. Let's be real about that. Hey, let me ask you this before we take a break. Y'all can catch your breath quick giggling at me. If we're doing Hunger Games, I'll throw a name out at you. You tell me whether you're taking this coach or Robert Saleh. Let's start at the top. Dan Campbell. Duran, who you taking?
Dan.
Oh,
Dan.
okay. All right. I didn't know. Okay, you're taking Dan too, JJ? All right, and you can throw out some other names if some come up. What about Mike T versus Robert?
I don't know, because I don't know.
Okay, so Robert's up there. Like, he's top 5. Is there anyone else outside of Dan Campbell that you would lean towards, Rand, in the Hunger Games coaches
from a head
arm wrestling to make it
head coaching perspective?
Yeah, Mike Vrabel's one that producer Sharon mentioned. Like, he's tough.
D'Amico.
Oh, D'Amico?
like even Sean, are you surprised by D'Amico?
He's just because Robert's so much bigger.
You should Google image him.
You said what? You said Robert's bigger?
Isn't Robert bigger or no?
Let's go to commercial break.
This man.
This is how I'm getting treated on a Monday. It's gonna be a long week for Ryan Wilson. Wrap it up. All right, Sharon, let's go take a break. When we come back, I may or may not be here. If I do return, I'm basically the Baltimore Ravens of this podcast, so we'll talk about the Ravens and their fall from grace right after this break. All right, great news, guys. I survived the commercial break after all the torment. The HR violation has been filed, just so you guys know, so you can laugh it up when you're talking to those folks. But in the meantime, let's talk about Lamar Jackson. And Judge, I'll ask you first. Lamar's out with a hamstring injury. Everyone and their brother on that team is hurt. They're 1-3. John Harbaugh said he is concerned but not panicked about the 1-3 start. I don't know if there's anything you can do other than just suck it up and wait for Father Time to help these people get healthy. What's your concern level with the Ravens now? It's crazy to say, one of the worst teams in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, there's a legitimate level of concern with them because, no exaggeration, 6 of their top 7 defensive players are injured, have been injured, may continue to be injured, right? We don't know when they're getting Madubuike back. Jair Alexander, who was a name that they went out and got, has only really played in one game. Nate Wiggins just went out. Roquan Smith, Marlon Humphrey went out in that game, right? Kyle Van Noy hasn't been able to play. It's really just Kyle Hamilton and the Funky Bunch. Yeah. And then when you look at Lamar Jackson, he has a hamstring. What concerns me is that on that run, that was his last play that we continue to kind of show across networks, where do you see the hamstring pull on that run? Where do you see him go and grab the back of the leg and be like, oh man, my hamstring? As he walks to the bench, where is it? And so
what are you saying?
Well, I mean, it certainly could have happened on that play. Or maybe he's been dealing with this for some time. Maybe he was dealing with it throughout the game. Maybe he was dealing with it the week before when he got sacked 7 or 8 times against the Lions. And now it's gotten to a point that he couldn't go. And if he can't go, it's not like you have a backup who does exactly what this offense always does. It's Lamar Jackson, nearly 3-time NFL MVP, and then it's Cooper Rush. So you're overhauling a lot of stuff this week for the Ravens against a very good Houston Texans defense. And then that next week you got the LA Rams, and then you have a bye. So they're 1-3 right now. If they don't have Lamar, and if their bad fortune on defense remains the same, I know it's crazy to say, but you could be looking at 1-5. And if you're 1-5, you are not playing January football.
Hey, Rand, how do you circle the wagons when the hopes are so high a month ago and you're sitting at 1-3 and you have 3 guys that are healthy and one of them isn't your franchise quarterback?
Well, this is a veteran-laden team, so all these guys have different experiences that they should be able to share to kind of help get the team over the hump. But like I agree with JJ, I think this is something that was kind of lingering coming into the game because he did not have the same juice out the gate yesterday during the game. So it was one of those situations for me where from the start of the game, I said, he doesn't look like he has the same juice or the energy. And I don't know, maybe it was coming off of having played such a spirited game on Monday night, then a short week, and you got to be ready to roll, come Sunday, and especially with the way in which he plays. But for me, this is something that I think we're going to have to keep our eye on for the rest of the season to just kind of see how much the hamstring truly affects him.
Yeah, to JJ's larger point, 1-5 feels like a distinct possibility. Lamar is now 1-6 against the Chiefs in his career. Most losses against any team he's played, which sort of checks out. And it feels like the Chiefs are back to where we thought they were going to be at 2-2. All right, let's take a quick break when we come back here. I want to talk about A.D. Mitchell and the mistake he made in that loss against the Rams. Had a couple of mistakes there, and how you sort of bounce back from that as a young receiver and what it means for the Colts. And we'll talk about that right after this break. All right, guys, before we get out of here, let's talk about not so great performances from A.D. Mitchell, wide receiver for the Colts. Should have been a 76-yard touchdown, and he pulled to Deshaun Jackson and lost the ball inches before crossing the goal line. Here it is. You can see it here if you're watching us on YouTube. Principal Rand, I'm gonna let you be Joe Clark in this scenario, and I'm gonna send AD Mitchell down to your office because I would imagine this is a talking point every single week about what not to do, and yet it still happened. What are you telling AD Mitchell after he literally throws the ball out of the end zone and takes a touchdown into a touchback?
Yeah, come on down to the front of the congregation, AD. We got to have a talk, young fella. Listen, this is what Friday tape is, right? So Friday tape, you work through a bunch of different scenarios and things that have gone on in the league, situational football. You get all the examples of what happened in the previous week, and you are always taught in terms of ball security, when you're crossing the line of scrimmage, you never reach unless it's fourth down, or a gotta-have-it moment is when you reach. Otherwise, you bring the ball to the letters and logos. And then once you cross it to the letters and logos, you can hold it up, you can throw it in the stands, you can punt it, you can dunk it, you can do whatever you want to with it, but to the letters and logos. So that was one mistake. And then the second mistake was the hold on Jonathan Taylor's run. So just him alone, he took, well, let's just call it 12 points off of the board, which was the difference in the game. And so you have to have the tough, hard talk, which I'm pretty sure wide receiver coach Reggie Wayne will have with him, but with the understanding that it's still at some point, this is a talented young man and that you're going to need him again at some point because he was playing in place of Alec Pierce. And so you still got to bring him to the front of the congregation, to the principal's office, have that tough talk with him, but you still need to put your arm around him and breathe some life into him because the kid did take it pretty bad on the sideline. So you still need to bring him up, build him up with confidence. But you cannot have this, especially with where this Colts team is trying to take this newfound team and look where they're trying to go with it.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating. And if you have a young daughter, JJ, so you're not there at that point, but the amount of times I've repeated myself to my two boys, it feels like they've told, you tell the young players the same thing, please, for the love of God, just do this, and they don't do it. And you're like, okay, you're not even trying to hear what I'm saying. So hopefully it's a tough lesson learned, and AD can bounce back from it because he can be obviously spectacular. JJ, you want to talk about another wide receiver who had an interesting afternoon? Not on the field so much, but what he tweeted afterwards. And producer Sharon, if you want to show that tweet that A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles sent out after the game, it says, if you're not welcome, not listened to, quietly withdraw. Don't make a scene, shrug your shoulders, and be on your way, end quote. JJ, what do you make of A.J. Brown's tweet after their win over the Buccaneers?
Well, first of all, it's interesting. We just talked about A.D. Mitchell, A.D. short, of course, for Adonai, and now we're talking here about A.J. Brown's message, which, of course, comes from the Message Bible. I was reading this at first, and I said, is this a rap lyric? And then, because I came up with the King James Version, right? But this is from the Message. So this is a Bible verse, what Jesus is telling his disciples. So that is where A.J. Brown is drawing from here. You're 4-0. You've won 20 of your last 21 games. Can you not? Just don't tweet. But like diva wide receivers can't help themselves. Like he literally cannot help himself. He tried so hard to hold himself back, and he was just like, all right, best I can do is I got to send out a Bible verse, guys. And I get that he's frustrated, right? I understand that there is a level of frustration, and he wants to participate a little bit more in these wins, but kind of going back to what we talked about with Cam Ward, we're like, man, I really do enjoy that you're saying these things, but is this helping the team? Is this helping the ultimate goal? And when A.J. Brown is doing this, while they continue to win, is this helping the goal of the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yep, I get it. All right, that's it for us here on Random Back Mondays. Be back in 2 days for Young Fellow Wednesdays. Check out With the First Pick wherever you get your podcast. Thanks to all you guys who joined us. See you in the next one.